Hello and welcome to Sideline Story, your destination for sports news, analysis and discussions. I'm Yang Guang. This week we're breaking down the NBA Conference Finals. Are these the best playoff matches we've seen? And who are the biggest stars stealing the spotlight? Joining me for the conversation are my fantastic co-hosts Tian Yu and Brandon Yates. Alright, let's first look into the Western Conference Finals between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs. Yep. What two games. I was pumped with this seesaw battle. Tian Yu, would you say this is the best Western Conference Final series in your recent memory, and what specifically makes this clash so intense?
Yeah, I will probably say so, because honestly, before the series started, I didn't expect it to be, this tight. The first two games are in OKC, and they kind of dominated the regular season, and as defending champions they look just unbeatable, but the Spurs turned out to be such a hard nut to crack. They're so difficult to deal with. What I really like about this whole Spurs team is not only about Wembanyama. Guys like Stephen Castle and Dylan Harper, they have stepped up in crucial moments too. They can defend hard, run nonstop, and they just create space around Wembanyama. The whole team just gives you this, fearless and resilient vibe. Talking about the other side, the OKC, I think they still look terrifying. But, I think it was for the first time for a while, they're facing a team that can seriously challenge them and just truly match their intensity. It doesn't feel like one-sided at all. It feels like two, future dynasties colliding. One is trying to build a new era, and the other is trying to, defend one.
Right. Remember, the San Antonio Spurs had a regular season record against OKC with 4 wins and just 1 loss. And I don't think they consider themselves as underdogs in this series. Brandon, is the Spurs-Thunder West Final the type of playoff games you've been looking for? And what makes it particularly interesting and entertaining to watch?
I think what makes it particularly interesting is that I wasn't expecting this big of a challenge from San Antonio, to be honest. I think that I was expecting them to be a team that solely relied on Victor Wembanyama, and I've always felt, at least in these initial stages of his, very young and inexperienced career, that, he hasn't been consistent enough to be able to take a franchise like San Antonio all the way. But the supporting cast, people haven't really been talking about recently, but in these playoffs, they've been absolutely incredible. And Tian Yu, you mentioned Stephen Castle, and he's really impressed me. The aggression that he plays with and the confidence and, kind of getting into the face of some of OKC stars. Like I remember in the opening minutes of, game 2, where he tried to land that dunk over Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And drawing the foul, but he didn't land the dunk. But Shai just looked really shocked, and it kind of woke the team up, which probably didn't play into their hands. Obviously, OKC going on to level the series. But I think it just showed that they're not going to lie down, and I think that they're not going to just completely rely on Victor Wembanyama to bring them the victories. And even though he has been incredible, there's some interesting little factoids about Victor Wembanyama that have come out. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he had some sort of a blood clot or something in his shoulder.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the specific. I think it was something like that. And then there was a period where it looked like his career might be over. And apparently, I think he said that he spent 9 or 10 minutes completely inconsolable and crying and on the floor, and he really thought that was going to be the end. And then he managed to recover. And then he spent some time in China. I think he spent time with Shaolin monks or something like that, and doing some interesting training. And I saw there were pictures of him at the Great Wall and outside, the palace and all of this sort of thing. So maybe there was some influence from China's side that has gotten him back to this level. So maybe if he goes all the way to lift the NBA, maybe he can thank China for helping him get there. Besides some of those elements that I already mentioned, particularly the fact that San Antonio aren't just lying down, I think there's also definitely some, tactical elements. OKC, are known for playing disciplined, switch-heavy precision basketball, which has really worked for them. And I think it particularly works for someone like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who we know has incredible ability, but is also a master of manipulating the rules to benefit him and what
Yeah.
he can do. So, I think that really, and that's not, I mean that as the highest compliment. I know a lot of people don't like it, but if you're able to, manipulate the rules to benefit your team and your game so that you can, excel, all credit to you. But San Antonio, very differently, creative. They play with length and very unpredictable. And I think that's also something that is very interesting to watch. Every possession from both sides feels incredibly different, but incredibly impactful. And also just from both sides, the athleticism that we're seeing from some of these stars, but obviously particularly from Wembanyama and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is just absolutely incredible. So obviously Wembanyama with the rebounds and just his incredible height and reach is something, but he also has incredible shooting and it's just a pretty remarkable all-rounder. I still don't think he's anywhere near what he can be and what he should be, but the fact that he's already, gotten to this point with the San Antonio team is pretty remarkable, and they could potentially go all the way. But then you look at someone like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the players that he has around him and the kind of grace that he plays with, and he kind of floats around and looks very, very difficult to stop without drawing a foul. Both those men in particular are very, very exciting to watch for completely different reasons. So yeah, the basketball's been exceptional. The different approaches have been really interesting to watch. So yeah, I think this is going to be one of those conference finals that is one for the ages.
Right. I would say San Antonio is the first team OKC has encountered in this year's playoffs to match their physicality and intensity.
Yeah.
Both teams are very energetic, and look at those young lads. Even the role players from the OKC side, Wallace, Caruso.
Caruso, yeah.
Yeah, they just, they're very tough to beat. That game one, I would say it's the most intense NBA game I've seen for quite some time. Just the classic. When the two teams encountered for the first time in the playoffs this year, no targeted adjustments, no full preparations, just raw power heading against each other. And at the tail of the game, the superstar duel between SGA and Wembanyama really raised the game to another level, especially Wemby. I mean, he was already turning heads in his first playoff run this year. But what a sensational game one. That logo 3 to tie the game in overtime, insane, just insane. It must be recorded as one of the signature games for the French star in his career. So Tianyu, let's stay with Wembanyama. Have you been surprised at all by his performance so far? Or did you expect this level of brilliance?
Well, honestly, yes, I am surprised. He already plays with the calmness of a veteran. He's just, nothing seems to rush him, and he never looks kind of overwhelmed by the moment. Of course, his physical tools are real, but I think the biggest thing about him is actually his game IQ. He just understands the game at a very high level already, and he always seems to be in the right place at the right moment. Whether it's, like we said, it's grabbing rebounds, protecting the paint, or, finding open space offensively. It's his basketball IQ that gets him, so many easy points and rebounds, consistently. And also, I think I want to talk about his mentality part, because I think that's what separates stars from superstars. I think, like you mentioned, the game one moment against OKC was, the perfect example of that. Is so iconic. Spurs was down 3 points with less than 30 seconds left. Everybody expected Wembanyama to pass the ball and just go straight inside. Instead of doing that, he just pulled up for a 3 and, tied the game. Considering the pressure and, he's not known as an elite shooter yet. That took serious confidence. The thing is, if he misses that shot, all the criticism will come to him. But he still took it. So I think that courage just really impressed me. To be a true superstar, talent alone is far from enough. You also need the mindset to take the responsibility in the biggest moments. I think Wemby already has that mentality, and that's why people are already talking about him as someone who has the potential to reach the level of, the likes of LeBron James and Kevin Durant someday.
Yeah, that might be the part the Shaolin Temple experience helped him.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone was talking about Wemby's clutch three-pointer in game one. It gave me goosebumps as well.
Yes.
But that defensive presence he brought into the game
Yeah.
was just something else. It was, I would say, the most intimidating defense I've ever seen from a single player. When Wemby is under the basket, the Thunder players don't even dare to attack the paint. There's one moment in game one that really struck me. Caruso delivered a beautiful no-look pass to a wide-open Shai Gilgeous-Alexander near the rim. No defender in sight. SGA pulled up a short-range jumper. Normally a 100% make for him, but it fell short. Why? Simply because Victor Wembanyama was somewhere nearby. Wemby didn't even jump or fully commit for a block. He was just standing there watching.
Yeah.
And that alone disrupted SGA, MVP's guaranteed shots. I mean, it kind of tells the true story of Wembanyama's dominance, the psychological fear he instills in
His
the
presence.
opponents.
Yeah.
He doesn't even need to touch the ball to change the game. That's my impression. Brandon, beyond the obvious physical gifts, what truly separates Wembanyama from every others in the game right now? Do you think he's growing into the face of the league?
I don't think he's quite at that stage yet, but he's definitely on the path. I think that he is definitely someone that the league is going to want to protect, maybe in a similar way to SGA. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops rules-wise and calls from the referees-wise going forward. But the way that you guys have called it, I think, covers it completely. You both touched on his effectiveness, but on both ends of the court. And I think that's what separates him from most young superstars at this point in time, is that he really and truly does affect almost every single layer of the game, which is not something that you often see these days. Protects the rim like an all-time great center, moves like a wing defender, shoots comfortably from the outside. I mean, like you said, it's not as reliable and as consistent as it should be at this point, but when the moment calls for it, and like that game-changing three, he really does seem to be able to step up and have an impact in the moment. Can create offense from the dribble, passes well enough to punish double teams. And like you've mentioned, psychologically, opponents are really concerned about him, and they really do seem to visibly alter their attacks because of him, which is not something that you would actually expect from a franchise like OKC, who are so, sort of structured and confident and not really set in their ways, but they definitely have a system that I think that they've been comfortable with. And I think Wembanyama was like, well, that's enough of that. Let's see how you can handle me and what I can do. That's what makes him so impressive, is that, beyond the physical 7'8", and the reach that he has, and just being an absolute physical anomaly, he can still move that body. I think that's another thing. And the impact that he has with and without the ball, I think is what makes him the most scary prospect for any opposing team or opponent. Because normally when you face someone that is, like Yang Guang mentioned, potentially the face of the NBA going forward, or someone that is, the man of the moment in the NBA, you normally only have to prepare to deal with one element, offense or defense. With Victor Wembanyama, you have to prepare adequately enough for both.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like a one-man team. I'm not saying that San Antonio and, some of the players that we mentioned are not supporting him, and I think that's what makes San Antonio even more of a scary prospect, at least for these playoffs. But the fact that he's able to be as effective as a superstar on both ends is what makes him, I think, so generational. And I think that's why former and current stars have spoken about him like he's going to go down as one of the greats of all time before he had even stepped onto, an NBA court. So if he can maintain this level, continue to, stay fit and healthy, and, grow in confidence, and become more consistent, I think there's no reason why he can't potentially go down as one of the greatest big men of all time. But again, the injury concerns have to be really, really well managed.
Yeah.
And it is very, very, even though he has reached incredible success very early on, anything can happen. So it's looking very good at these early stages, but hopefully we can still be talking about him in this regard 10 years from now, which is what he should be aiming for to reach the heights of someone like, I know it's an unfair, not comparison, but it's an unfair target, but to reach someone like, let's say, LeBron James's level, to perform at the superstar level for 20 years is what people are expecting of him. And it'll be interesting to see if he can deliver that, because I wouldn't want that pressure on anybody's shoulders. But he seems to be handling it better than most young superstars right now and historically.
Yeah. San Antonio without Victor Wembanyama, I would say, is totally a different team. They would struggle for even the play-in tournament spots. I haven't seen this much of an influence inside the team since LeBron James.
Yeah.
I would say he might be the next face of the league. All right, before we move on, here's a quick review of the biggest sports headlines in China and around the world for the past week. Arsenal has won the English Premier League title for the first time in 22 years. This was after Manchester City were held to a 1-1 draw at Bournemouth. Mikel Arteta's side will lift the trophy on Sunday at Crystal Palace. City manager Pep Guardiola congratulated Arsenal on winning the title.
Congratulate Arsenal, Mikel, staff, backroom staff. Thanks for this Premier League, well deserved.
With one game left, City remains 4 points behind the Gunners. Aston Villa roared to a 3-0 victory over Freiburg in the Europa League final. The win gives Unai Emery his 5th Europa League title as a manager and ends Villa's 30-year trophy drought.
With this trophy, we are sure we need as well, and the club as well, in a lot of things, is trying to get better.
Freiburg missed the trophy and the Champions League spots. Brazil has named Neymar to its squad for the FIFA World Cup. The 34-year-old comes back following a prolonged absence due to a series of injuries that kept him out of much of the qualifying campaign. Brazil head coach Carlo Ancelotti says he has time to improve further.
The assessment throughout the year has always focused on his physical condition, and we have discussed that. He played consistently in the last few games. It's possible that he will have the chance to improve his physical condition during this period leading up to the first World Cup match.
Meantime, Portugal head coach Roberto Martinez has named the 41-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo to the squad for the upcoming World Cup.
Football Mundial? When we talk about Cristiano Ronaldo, there are two players, the icon and then the player. He has the competitiveness needed to be in the national team, and for me, the captain, exemplary.
Germany also named its 26-man squad with the late return of 40-year-old Manuel Neuer. Julian Nagelsmann also included youngsters such as 18-year-old Leonard Carl, while keeping faith with an out-of-form Leroy Sané. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder has won the NBA's Most Valuable Player for the second consecutive year. The win for Gilgeous-Alexander, who is Canadian, marks the 8th consecutive time that NBA's MVP was born outside the US. The Dallas Mavericks have mutually agreed to part ways with head coach Jason Kidd. Team president Masai Ujiri says the Mavs now aim to build a clear direction around rookie Cooper Flagg and veteran Kyrie Irving. Yannick Sinner became the first Italian man to win the Italian Open since Adriano Panatta achieved the feat 50 years ago. Sinner's victory over Casper Ruud in the final also made him only the second man after Novak Djokovic to win all 9 Masters 1000 events.
Yeah, there's no better place to complete this set, For an Italian, it's one of the most special places we play tennis in.
Sinner has extended his winning streak to 29 matches. Welcome back. Now let's zoom in onto the Eastern Conference side. The Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks are battling it out for the NBA Finals spot. Game 1 was one of the most iconic comebacks in NBA history, done by the New York Knicks. But Tianyu, Cleveland and New York, are the two teams really the sides you expected to be appearing at this stage of the competition?
Honestly, I think the Knicks making the Eastern Conference Finals.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it wasn't that surprising. I mean, they've been building toward this for a few years already. And, with Jalen Brunson playing at this level, they always had a chance. But I have to admit, I think the Cavaliers surprised a little bit to me. I mean, yes, they have stars like Donovan Mitchell and James Harden. But I think during the regular season, I still didn't feel, fully convinced by their performances, especially James Harden. I think you can still see the playmaking ability and his, rich experience in the league. But physically, he's clearly not the same player anymore. And in that first game against the Knicks, Bronson really attacked Harden hard.
Yeah.
I mean, again and again. And, at one point, the Knicks, they were down big. Like, they were trailing by over points.
20 points, yeah.
Yes. But Bronson completely changed the momentum by targeting mismatches and just, breaking through the defense. And I must say, Harden suffered a lot in these, matchups. So yeah, overall, I still think the Western Conference Finals look much stronger in terms of, game quality and intensity. I think the basketball there just feels, faster, more complete on both sides. And that's why if I'm predicting, the finals right now, I think I would favor whoever comes out of the Western Conference.
Okay.
I think both OKC and the Spurs, they just, look more dominant overall.
To be honest, I was kind of expecting an East final series between Boston and Detroit. But Cleveland and New York really convinced me why they are here now. I mean, I was impressed with the Cavaliers' dynamic offense and New York's resilience. They showed it in Game 1 as well. But Brandon, here's a question that might anger fans of both sides. Tianyu has made his prediction, but do you believe whoever comes out of the East is ultimately playing for second place, given how powerful the top two teams in the West look this season?
I'm not entirely sure. I think that someone like James Harden getting to an NBA Finals, I think that would completely bring out the best in him. And I think that could, even at this late stage in his career, be a scary prospect. I'm also a very big fan of Donovan Mitchell. He doesn't get spoken about enough, in my opinion. I think that he really is somebody that is an incredible athlete, a really dominant attacker, and has an elite mentality. But speaking of an elite mentality, Jalen Brunson, that guy is such an underdog, smaller than everybody else, but the way that he attacks and the confidence that he has and the resilience that he has really does seem to galvanize this Knicks team whenever they face adversity. I know he's got, again, like SGA and Wemby, fantastic support cast around him, but I think he will always grab the headlines. From a purely on paper perspective, I think that if San Antonio or OKC get to the finals, I think it's going to be incredibly challenging for the Cavs or for New York to overcome that. But I think that there are one or two sort of smoking guns that kind of fly under the radar for both the Cavs and for New York, that I just mentioned, that could also potentially make it not necessarily a walkover, but I think it, could be a very competitive finals.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson, such a phenomenal player. I haven't seen a player in his height playing so aggressively in the NBA playoffs. Just phenomenal. But finally, let's talk about disappointments. Tianyu, who has been the single most disappointing player in these playoffs so far, relative to expectations, contract, or past performances?
Yeah, I have to mention Chet Holmgren. I actually like this player. I think he's diligent, his defensive work rate, he's willing to sacrifices for his teammates, and he had a fantastic regular season. But in this series against Wembanyama, I think he just hasn't looked like himself. Usually we see a confident and a complete player in Chet, especially defensively. But in these games, I think he's kind of being completely overshadowed.
Yeah, Chet Holmgren has been compared with Victor Wembanyama since he stepped into the league. He needs to find his own rhythm, especially in this tie against San Antonio. But from my side of things, I would say Nikola Jokic must be the biggest disappointment this season. I mean, he's one of the top players in the league, but declined for no reason, without any clue, against the Wolves. Rudy Gobert used to be his toy, but this time he could do little against the French center. Definitely not the Jokic I knew.
Yeah.
Brandon, who has failed expectations the most in the playoffs so far from your perspective?
I think most recently, with the expectations around James Harden and, the leadership capabilities that he was supposed to bring to Cleveland, we haven't seen that yet. And I think historically that has been a problem. We know about his struggles with the 76ers, and he is somebody that is and has been a generational talent, but mentality-wise, I don't know if he has the leadership capabilities to take a team like the Cavaliers all the way to the championship. It remains to be seen. And if he does get to that point, I think that we will see the best of him. I think that he will be incredibly determined to take that probably final opportunity that he has in his career to get that ring, and to get it with the Cavs, I think would be an incredible achievement for somebody like him and for that entire organization.
James Harden, I agree. Jalen Brunson and James Harden, tactically, that's not a mismatch. Yeah. But Harden declined so much in his mobility, especially on the defensive side of things. So I guess, Brunson just took full advantage of that. All right, let's see how the conference finals will proceed and who will stand on the final stage. With that, we end this episode of Sideline Story. Thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe to Sideline Story and leave your comments wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, you can also check our website at radio.cgtn.com. Until next time, stay on the sidelines with us.